Right this minute, search teams are giving us an update on the search for two missing firefighters, both vanished while boating out at sea 4 days ago.
Let's go out live right now to Naval Station Reported search crews give us an update.
There's some folks that are up here with me today. I've got City Council President Scott Wilson, Councilman Member Rory Diamond, and Council Member Randy White. Also have Captain from the U.S. Coast Guard, Mark Vaughn. And I'd like to update what our search ops have, what we're doing today. Currently, we have about 180 searchers out looking for our brother firefighters. There's more than 70 boats that are participating in this, and this is a combination of JFRD boats, civilian, and some local law enforcement and other fire departments that are providing resources for us. We also have about 10 aircraft that are flying certain segments out there looking for us, and we're going to cover about 12,600 miles today. We're still getting a lot of questions, a lot of calls to headquarters on the donation thing. I'll reemphasize that again. If somebody wants to help out with some of the fuel costs that are being incurred out here, they can visit jfrd.com and click on the link and make that donation. Again, I want to thank the community for their support in this effort. Without them, it wouldn't be possible what we're doing. And I want you to continue to please remember these two families in your thoughts and prayers. It's very important that we lift them up right now. I specifically want to bring up Captain Blonde, but I want to thank the Coast Guard. I want to thank you for all that y'all been doing. They have just put forth a Herculean effort in this, trying to help us find these folks. And I want to introduce him now, bring him up, and let him say a few words.
Thanks, Chief Powers. We're now in the 5th day of what has become an extraordinarily large and complex search and rescue operation. As of yesterday, we've completed over 50,000 square miles of searching with over 20 agencies. To give you an idea of how broad and how involved, we've had Navy P-8 aircraft been flying almost persistently out of NAS Jacksonville. We've had Customs and Border Protection P-3 aircraft flying out of Florida. We've had Coast Guard aircraft flying out of Savannah, Clearwater, Miami, and Elizabeth City, North Carolina. We have a cutter out of Charleston, the Cormorant. We have two Coast Guard cutters from the local area, the Moray and the Ridley. We had the Coast Guard cutter Confidence, which has also passed through the search and rescue area, and all of which has been dedicated to a search and trying to bring Brian and Justin back. At this point, yesterday, since we found a bag, when JFRD contacted us about that, we've been able to contract our search. And today's efforts are really focused on the area around where that equipment bag was found. I've got 3 aircraft over that area right now and 3 Coast Guard cutters, larger Coast Guard cutters that are also searching in the vicinity of this area. And we're continuing through today and into tomorrow. And I want to thank Chief Powers and his team. They've truly just been exceptional partners in this, as has a lot of our federal, state, and local partners all the way up and down to Duval County. And I couldn't say enough about the efforts that they've pulled together here on the inshore part of the search, which is some of the most complex operations given the nasty currents and things that you find in there. And they've had a coordinated effort on the inshore, which has allowed us to push our federal assets a little further offshore and really cover this area as best we can, given the multitude of currents and conditions that we're dealing with. So thank you.
Captain, can you talk about that a little bit, about the conditions out there, currents, water temperatures, just kind of what the body goes through, flinging to a cooler or whatnot?
The search conditions themselves have actually been favorable. Friday night we did have some weather come through, but Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and into today we have had favorable search conditions offshore. The currents do make it a challenge. As you know, the inshore currents has been widely reported travel at about a knot to a knot and a half. You get into the Gulf Stream and you have a swath of water that moves much, much faster. And then on the backside of that, you can get some eddy currents that can become a little bit less predictable. One of the things that we did early on is we've dropped data marker buoys in those areas to give us real-time data on top of all the data we're getting from the academic community and from government about wind and surface currents. We have some real-time buoys out there that are also providing us with some capability to drift. We have some relatively sophisticated modeling, computer modeling software that we use each day, and then we can adjust every time we find something new or get new information to help us learn where they may have come from, where they could be, and then allow us to put assets across the board out onto the areas where we think we have the greatest chance of success.
Does the Coast Guard know how much longer they'll be searching?
What have they been able to tell you about the conditions of the boat itself? Has family been able to tell you anything about any mechanical issues it was having or what was on it to help them in a situation like this?
We only have the pictures from when they departed, and it was really only a picture from one angle. So while we've scoured that picture to look and see what they may or may not have had on board, we just don't know entirely what they went out with. We haven't had anybody come up to us. We really haven't had any conversations with anyone who saw them that day. So the only things we know for sure is what time they departed, and then we know from a cell phone ping about an hour and a half later that they were out on some fishing grounds. Everything beyond that, unfortunately, is conjecture, and we're really treating that with multiple scenarios, which is what our job is, to kind of predict what they might have done and then search accordingly. But it's somewhat complicated by the fact that we really only have those 2 data points.
Does the Coast Guard know how much longer they'll search?
So ultimately, that's a decision that will fall to me, and I can only tell you that for today, we're continuing to search, and we're searching heavily based on what we learned yesterday. As each day, we effectively have to take a look at what did we find the day before, and do we still have a reasonable chance of success. For today, that answer is yes, and we'll continue searching. The Chief and I and our teams have met all morning to talk about, kind of what we'll do through today and tomorrow. Beyond that, I'm really speculating on information I don't know, which is what would we find today, what will tomorrow look like. All I can tell you is that for the next search period, we have absolutely saturated the area that we're looking at right now, and we're going to continue to do that throughout the day today.
Can you describe some of that saturation, like you said, where that tackle box was found yesterday? How can you, again, continue to go through that and use all the technology you were mentioning to search for any other additional clues?
So as soon as we found the tackle box, we started, I had my team, some of our search planners behind me, started doing what we call reverse drifts. So they took the tackle box and then drifted that backwards to see that it actually did seem to appear. If the timing is right, it looked like it could have come from an area around Cape Canaveral. The family has verified that tackle box with a pretty high degree of accuracy came from that boat. Given that information, that allows us, that's a large data point that allowed us then to refocus some of our area. So instead of looking at the Gulf Stream and further north, it becomes problematic. That's getting up into North Carolina now. We've been able to take some of those assets we would have sent to other areas and focus them right on where we know we have an item that we found. So right now we are heavily located in that area. We have 3 aircraft searching the drift pattern around that, where that box is recovered. I have 3 cutters out there right now. And then, as Chief mentioned earlier, we have a multitude of boats out in the nearshore area that are also looking for additional clues that might help us find the boat or Brian and Justin.
We're hearing that a styrofoam cooler lid was found. Can you confirm that?
So we found a number of different kinds of debris out there. One of them was a styrofoam cooler lid. Unfortunately, that's a very generic item. So while we're trying to run that down to see if something like that could have been on board, it was in the same geographic vicinity as the bag, so it could possibly be correlating, but with the bag itself, our effort's really on top of the bag because we have a much higher degree of certainty with that. We found other pieces of trash out there that we just can't distinguish, pieces of plastic and things like that. The lid is something that we have worked into our search grid, taking, and again, whether we know it or not, it's just an area that allows us to put some assets on to see if we can find something else. But I can't confirm that at this point.
There's been a lot of optimism about the training that these 2 had. What would that training tell them to do in this situation? What are you looking for considering the training that they've had?
I'm not familiar with the particular training that either individual had, but I do know that I'm looking for 2 relatively young, healthy, trained firefighters, one of whom's a Navy veteran. That obviously gives us hope. That if, given something bad happening, it would give them a chance at survival. We have to counter that against, with anyone, how long have they been in the water and what are we finding? And the reality is we're still limited to 1 tool bag at the moment. And we remain optimistic, but guardedly so. But we'll, like I said, for today, we're 100% in, and we're continuing to look for Justin and Brian.
Still at this point a rescue operation? 100%.
At this point, it is absolutely 100% a rescue operation.
With your concentration around the tackle box and that grid in that area, still how far north are you and how far south are you spread out?
As of the moment, we have aircraft that are about as far north as Savannah and about as far south as St. Augustine was the drift we were running this morning. So it's still a pretty good size swath. But we're, the focus with the cutters is really in that geographic region just a little bit north of Jacksonville, which takes into account the bag and then drifting it overnight.
Are you able to scan the bottom for any sort of wreckage or anything like that?
Not at the moment, no.
I didn't know if the P3s do it or whoever.
No, at this point, at the rescue, we're really looking on the surface, and all of our efforts right now is still on the surface, and while we're still looking actively for the boat.
You mentioned a cell phone ping near some fishing grounds. Where exactly was that?
Almost directly off Cape Canaveral, in a very common fishing area that they believe they were in. There's a number of shallow fishing areas where people typically bottom fish. And we know from talking to the family and some of the friends that that's an area that he could likely have been in. And that's been one of the many areas that we looked at right from the get-go, is that they would be in that area that is a pretty common fishing ground.
Do you have a message for the community or anything that you need from volunteers or the community in regards to the search?
I can't thank the community enough. The outpouring of support to Chief Powers and his crew and to us in the Coast Guard. You can never say enough about the support the community gives us, whether it's just a thank you or something online. We see tips and things too. Some of the fishermen were writing in about other fishing spots that maybe we hadn't thought of, and you can rest assured that if we see something we haven't thought of, we will take a screenshot of that and we'll add that in and take a look. Is that something new? Is that something that we could take further? So we absolutely appreciate all of the assistance, the help, and the outpouring of support from the community. And I can't say enough about the North Florida, South Georgia, all the way down to Cape Canaveral. It's been an absolutely wonderful outpouring, and it makes you proud to serve this community.
Just a real quick clarification, did the search officially start on Friday night or on Saturday?
We were searching Friday night, so the minute the call came in, we began a Coast Guard search based on the information we had at that time, and then the search continued to ramp up throughout Saturday, throughout the weekend, and we've maintained the same steady level of search from then until now.
I do have one more question.
Listening live to the Coast Guard update on the two missing boaters, Brian McClooney and Justin Walker. 180 searchers out there right now with 70 boats from JFRD, civilian boats, as well as other fire departments, 10 aircraft also circling, fixed-wing planes and helicopters trying to find these two men right now, but still with no success.